Welcome back to the deep dive. This is where we take those really dense, sometimes pretty wild ideas shared by you, our listeners, and we try to break them down.
Yeah, make them understandable, see what's really inside.
Exactly. And today we're taking a huge leap. Forget tweaking the current financial system. We're diving into a thought experiment that honestly forces us to rethink what money even is.
That's right. We're looking at a listener proposal for something called the $0 coin, or ZDC. And let's be clear, this isn't just another crypto stablecoin, not even close.
No, it's way beyond that.
It's this incredibly detailed framework designed to kind of surgically separate basic human needs, food, shelter, essentials, from all the financial chaos, the speculation, the ups and downs we see in global markets.
So the mission today is really to explore this unprecedented idea. Could it actually work? How would it allocate resources? What about fairness, social equity?
And we're starting, as the source material does, by looking at the inherent instability, the sort of foundational cracks in our current money systems.
Right. The source kicks off with a really critical question. If things go sideways globally, say the US dollar tanks, or maybe crypto truly takes over, why are the standard dollar-pegged stablecoins, fundamentally not the right long-term answer?
It boils down to that single point of failure. Any system, doesn't matter how clever the tech is, if it's built on pegging to a single fiat currency like the dollar, well, it inherits all the risks of that currency.
So if the dollar collapses or just inflates massively,
Then your stablecoin, whether it's backed by cash in a bank or some fancy algorithm, it becomes unstable too, instantly. Its entire foundation is compromised because it's ultimately tied to this one centralized, potentially fragile thing.
Okay, so that's the core problem with just pegging to the dollar. Let's use that as a contrast then.
Well,
What are the current alternatives doing to find stability outside that direct dollar link? The sources mention a few different strategies, all trying to hold on to some kind of value.
yeah, that's the key. They're all still fundamentally about value. Storing it, maintaining it, just trying to diversify the risk away from only the dollar.
Okay, so what's the first approach? Maybe the most straightforward one.
Well, the most basic is just using the big, established, decentralized cryptocurrencies themselves. Things like Bitcoin or Ethereum.
As a store of value directly.
Exactly. Their stability doesn't come from a peg. It comes from, the sheer size and decentralization of their networks, their limited supply, their global adoption.
Yeah.
They're definitely volatile, no question.
Oh, yeah.
But their existence isn't tied to whether a specific government or bank fails. They're designed to survive systemic shocks precisely because they're so spread out, redundant.
Okay, so that's one way. Then there's the idea of not relying on one currency, but a whole basket.
Right, the currency basket approach. This is standard risk management, really, just
Right.
applied to stablecoins. You peg the coin not just to the dollar, but to a mix of major world currencies, euro, yen, Swiss franc, whatever.
The thinking being that if one goes down, the others might hold steady or even go up, balancing things out.
That's the theory. You're trying to smooth out the ride by diversifying across different national economies. Less reliance on any single point of failure.
And we see specific crypto projects trying variations of this, right? Like multi-collateral DAI.
Yeah, DAI is a really interesting example. It aims for a soft peg to the US dollar, but, and this is crucial, it's not backed by actual dollars in a bank.
It's backed by other crypto assets.
Exactly. Things like Ether, even other stablecoins like USDC, held in smart contracts. So the collateral itself is decentralized. It reduces that counterparty risk. You're not trusting a single bank or company to hold the reserves. The system automatically manages the collateral to maintain the peg.
Okay, different collateral. Then you've got reserve, RSV. That one seems specifically designed to move away from the dollar.
It is. RSV's backing basket is explicitly designed to include not just various national currencies, but also other stable cryptocurrencies.
Yeah.
The whole point is to build something that could theoretically survive even if the entire U.S. financial system had a major specific meltdown. It's engineered non-reliance on the USD.
And what about going old school, like backing with actual physical stuff? Digix DAO, DGX.
Right, linking directly to gold. DGX tokens are essentially digital claims on real physical gold bars held in audited vaults.
So its value is tied to gold, not any government's currency.
Precisely. It completely decouples from fiat fluctuations and anchors itself to something humans have trusted as a store of value for, well, millennia. Very traditional approach, just tokenized.
Okay, now this next one, Ampleforth, AMPL, feels important for understanding the ZDC contrast. It tries stability differently, right? Through supply changes.
Yeah, Ampleforth is the real outlier in this group. It doesn't use collateral at all, no backing. Instead, it has what's called an elastic supply,
Meaning the amount of AMPL changes.
automatically. The smart contract adjusts the number of coins in everyone's wallet daily. It's called a rebase. The goal is to keep the price of 1 AMPL hovering around $1.
So if demand drives the price up, everyone gets more coins to bring the price back down. Inflation.
Exactly. And if demand falls and the price drops below $1, the contract removes coins from wallet's deflation to push the price back up.
Wow, so it's constantly trying to hit that $1 target by just printing or burning its own money based on market signals.
That's the mechanism. It's a fascinating experiment in algorithmic stability, trying to detach from collateral risk. But, and here's the crucial link to ZDC, it's still fundamentally chasing the ghost of the dollar. Its whole purpose is to maintain a value equivalent to 1 USD.
Right. It's still playing the value game.
It is, and that highlights what the ZDC proposal sees as the sort of philosophical blind spot. All these systems of diverse collateral, gold, algorithmic supply, they're all dedicated to maintaining some kind of stable value for trading, for saving, for accumulation.
And the ZDC proposal just throws that entire goal out the window. It looks at all this complex engineering and asks, what if trying to store value is the problem?
That's the radical pivot. The ZDC premise is that any system allowing value accumulation inevitably invites speculation. And speculation leads to hoarding, which leads to price volatility that hurts ordinary people trying to access basic necessities.
So the ZDC asks, what if the coin isn't about storing worth at all? What if it's just about managing access? Logistics.
Precisely. What if its purpose is purely functional?
Okay, let's define this thing then. The $0 coin. It's a deliberate move away from value. What does that actually mean?
Its core identity is, well, it's designed to be functionally worthless in a traditional sense. The smart contract, the underlying tech, is hard-coded so the coin never fluctuates in value. It's always on null, as the source puts it.
Always zero. Mathematically fixed.
Mathematically fixed at zero. There's no mechanism to trade it for fiat or gold or Bitcoin or anything with market value. You can't speculate on its price because its price is immutably zero.
So it completely fails as a store of wealth. You can't invest in it hoping it goes up.
Exactly. Which means it's not money as we know it. It's a purely unit-based system. Think of it less like a coin and more like a digital token representing permission or a ledger entry for allocation.
A computational measure, maybe?
Yeah, a computational measure of your allowed share. Since you can't save it long-term, can't invest it, can't accumulate it to gain financial power, its only use becomes enabling immediate consumption or access within a set period. It's an allowance, not capital.
Which implies its uses have to be non-monetary, right? The source mentioned things like tokenizing labor or access rights.
Precisely. Because it removed the distortion of price fluctuation, you could potentially use it for things where money causes problems. Maybe allocating hours for a community project, granting access to shared infrastructure, managing rights to use environmental resources.
Yeah.
Anywhere, you just need a stable, non-negotiable unit of one.
The philosophical angle here is really something. It's like the ZDC is a commentary on our obsession with financial worth.
It absolutely is. It tries to force a shift away from accumulating abstract wealth towards the actual functional distribution of real-world resources and services.
But that paradox, how do you make something defined as worthless actually useful?
By embedding its utility, not in the coin itself, but in the system it operates within. The usefulness comes from the guarantee that this worthless token grants you access to real things under strict universal rules, like time limits.
Okay. The value isn't in the token. It's in the guaranteed access the token provides within that specific framework.
Exactly. In our current system, money is power because it's scarce and you can hoard it. In the ZDC system, the token is universally given out, but it's time-limited and quantity-limited each month. The power isn't in having the ZDC. The power is implicitly in the system that allocates the actual scarce resources that the ZDC lets you access.
That's a really critical distinction. The ZDC is just the permission slip, the access key.
Right. And importantly, the underlying real economy, the factories, the logistics, the resource management that still has to function, likely using traditional fiat money internally, as we'll get into. The ZDC layer just manages the human consumption part.
Okay, let's get into those mechanics. How does the zero-value coin actually manage consumption for billions of people? What are the rules? Because they have to be incredibly strict for this to even seem plausible.
They do. And the foundation is what the source calls universal, time-limited allocation.
Universal meaning everyone.
Everyone. The sources are very specific here. Presidents, billionaires, the poorest person on Earth, everyone gets the exact same amount, 1,000 ZDC per month. Non-negotiable, equal footing.
1,000 units. Not infinite, but equal. And here's the killer feature, the anti-hoarding mechanism.
The use it or lose it rule. This is non-negotiable. At the end of the 30 or 31-day cycle, any ZDC left in your wallet is automatically deleted by the smart contract. Wipe clean.
So you absolutely cannot save them up month after month.
Cannot save, cannot accumulate, cannot hoard resources by building up a massive ZDC balance. This mathematically severs the link between financial power and disproportionate resource consumption. It's the system's core defense mechanism.
Okay, universal allocation, monthly deletion. Next up, the pricing. This part feels almost absurdly simple, but deeply disruptive. The flat cost system.
Yeah, this one really messes with your economic intuition. Everything costs 1 ZDC.
Everything. Like everything.
Everything imaginable for personal consumption. A glass of water, 1 ZDC. A gourmet meal, 1 ZDC. A pair of socks, 1 ZDC. A brand new television, 1 ZDC. A car, 1 ZDC. Even hypothetically, a house, 1 ZDC.
Wow, okay. So the price tag, the cost in ZDC tells you nothing about the resource intensity or manufacturing complexity.
Nothing at all. Which means your decision-making process as a consumer completely changes. You're not thinking, can I afford this? You're thinking, is this the best use of one of my limited 1,000 tokens this month?
It forces a pure prioritization. If a toothbrush and a sports car both cost 1 ZDC, you have to genuinely decide which one you need or want more right now, because spending on one means you can't spend that token on anything else.
It creates this intense focus on immediate utility and personal priority, completely detached from market price signals, at least on the consumer side.
But wait, if a house costs 1 ZDC, wouldn't everyone just instantly try to buy a house or a car or a yacht? Wouldn't that deplete global resources overnight?
Good question. That's handled by the next layer of rules. Managing scarcity for long lifetime goods, or LTLs.
LTLs, so durable things.
Exactly. Things that are resource intensive and last a long time. Cars, houses, major appliances, maybe advanced computers or consoles. You can't just buy these whenever you want, even if you have the 1 ZDC. They're limited by time constraints.
Meaning you can only buy one every so often.
Correct. The system would impose limits based on probably the typical functional lifespan of that item and how resource heavy it is. So maybe you can get a new washing machine only once every 5 years. A car, maybe once every 10 years. A house, perhaps only once every 30 or 40 years.
How is that tracked?
It would require a really robust, transparent ledger, likely blockchain-based, again, tied securely to each individual's identity. It records what LTLs you've acquired and when. So the system knows you're not eligible for another car for X number of years.
So if I get a car today using 1 ZDC, and in 2 years I decide I want a different model, even if I have ZDC left that month, I can't buy one.
Nope. Your only option within that restricted time frame is the swapping mechanism.
Swapping.
You have to find someone else who has the LTL item you want and who wants the one you have and arrange a trade. Or maybe a more complex chain of swaps.
That's fascinating. It basically forces a massive secondhand market and encourages reuse.
Exactly. It strongly incentivizes people to take care of things, maybe buy higher quality initially, and it creates this organic recycling system. If you're not using your car, you have a strong reason to swap it for something you do need, getting it back into circulation. It pushes towards maximum utilization of existing goods.
Okay, this brings us to the fundamental control structure then. It's not price controlling consumption, it's actual availability, resource-based allocation.
This is maybe the most elegant part. Ultimately, your ability to consume isn't just limited by your 1,000 ZDC and the LTL timers, but by the actual physical supply of goods in the world.
So the 1 ZDC price is kind of an illusion. The real price is availability.
In a sense, yes. The source uses the Apple example. If there are 20 billion apples produced globally this month and 8 billion people, then the system effectively allows each person to potentially acquire, say, 2 apples that month, each costing 1 ZDC.
But if next month there's a bad harvest and only 10 billion apples are available,
then the allocation drops. Maybe only 1 apple per person is possible that month, still costing 1 ZDC. The token's value doesn't change, but the availability tied to that token does. Your ZDC only gets you what physically exists and is logistically available to you.
and if demand, expressed in ZDC clicks, exceeds the available supply, like everyone wants that new VR headset, but they only made 1 million.
Then the system simply registers unmet demand. 1 million people get the headset for 1 ZDC each, fulfilling their desire. The other millions who clicked buy simply don't get one. their ZDC isn't spent.
And that unmet demand signal, that's crucial, right? That tells the producers what needs to be made.
Absolutely crucial. That transparent, unmet ZDC demand becomes the primary signal to the underlying corporate economy, the part still operating on fiat money. If there's massive unmet demand for VR headsets or efficient solar panels or whatever.
Then the companies see that signal and have a massive incentive to invest fiat money to ramp up production of that specific thing to meet the ZDC demand.
Exactly. The incentive shifts from manipulating price based on scarcity to solving the scarcity based on transparent demand. The demand signal is pure, unfiltered by affordability.
Okay, I have to raise a potential issue here. The black market potential. If my 1,000 ZDC are universally allocated but non-transferable and expire, couldn't I still sell my access? Couldn't a wealthy person with lots of leftover fiat pay a poor person fiat cash to use their ZDC to buy luxury goods for the rich person?
That's a very valid concern, and the system design anticipates it. It relies on two main defenses. First, the ZDC wallet is immutably tied to your identity. You can't just send ZDC to someone else.
Right.
Second, the monthly expiration prevents accumulation, so you can't sell the ZDC itself. What you could theoretically sell is a service. I'll use my ZDC this month to acquire item X for you in exchange for fiat.
But the LTL rules complicate that significantly for big-ticket items, right?
They do. If the rich person pays someone to use their ZDC to buy a car, that car is registered on the LTL ledger under the poor person's identity. That poor person is now ineligible for another car for, say, 10 years. The rich person gets the car physically, perhaps, but doesn't own it in the system, and the original ZDC user burns their LTL eligibility.
So it makes large-scale LTL arbitrage difficult and maybe not worth the hassle or the risk of getting caught in informal transfers.
It significantly constrains it. It doesn't eliminate all black market potential, especially for non-LTL consumables like paying someone to use their ZDC for dozens of fancy meals you then consume. But it aims to structurally prevent the kind of mass resource accumulation by the wealthy that characterizes the current system, especially for major assets like housing and transport. The identity binding and LTL tracking are key friction points.
Okay, that makes sense. It routes around the most damaging forms of hoarding. Let's zoom out then to the overall impact. If the system were implemented, what happens to, say, financial markets as we know them?
Well, for anything related to basic human necessities, food, water, energy, housing speculation largely dies, or at least its direct impact on consumer access vanishes.
Because you can't profit by cornering the market on ZDC since it expires and has zero trade value.
Right. And you can't easily hoard the physical resources either because of the one ZDC flat cost, making hoarding incredibly expensive in terms of limited tokens, and the LTL time gates. So futures trading on wheat prices, speculating on energy costs to drive up consumer bills, that whole game becomes largely irrelevant to whether people can actually get wheat or energy using their ZDC.
Speculation might still exist within the corporate fiat layer, maybe betting on which company will be most efficient.
Exactly. The speculation gets confined to the B2B layer, the corporate efficiency game.
Yeah.
But it no longer holds individual human survival or well-being hostage through artificial price inflation at the consumer level.
This must force a massive shift in what businesses actually do, right? If profit maximization from consumers isn't the main driver anymore.
It fundamentally changes the goal. Companies still operate using fiat internally, yes. They still need to manage costs and be efficient. But their primary objective shifts from maximizing profit extracted from consumers to achieving optimal logistics and resource stewardship.
How is success measured then?
Success becomes about how effectively and efficiently a company meets the real transparent demand shown by ZDC usage, using the fewest planetary resources. It's about throughput, quality, sustainability, and logistical excellence.
The sources called it a min-max producing machinery. Minimize waste, maximize useful output.
That's a good way to put it. The mandate becomes maximizing the collective good, getting the right things to people efficiently. If Company A is better at making durable, desirable goods than Company B using fewer resources.
Then Company A gets more business signaled through ZDC, and Company B might have to scale down.
Yes, but crucially, without causing a mass unemployment crisis. Because the workers in Company B, even if they lose their fiat-based jobs, still receive their 1,000 ZDC monthly allowance. The system has a built-in safety net that decouples employment status from basic survival. The market can optimize for ecological and logistical efficiency without the same devastating social consequences.
That implies a huge change in motivation for people in business, too.
Absolutely. The source material suggests that instead of chasing, quote, the silly number of quarterly profit, people and business entrepreneurs, managers, engineers can focus on something genuinely meaningful. Building systems that provably improve resource access and quality of life for everyone, demonstrably, through the ZDC data.
Success is redefined as positive impact, efficiency, quality, not just the bottom line.
Right. Your success is measured by how well your part of the machine serves the whole, how well you steward resources. That's potentially a much more fulfilling kind of work.
And the impact on social justice seems immediate and dramatic.
It's potentially revolutionary. By giving everyone the same 1,000 ZDC per month and applying the same rules, the vast consumption gap between the rich and poor is largely eliminated, at least for accessing goods and services within the system.
Your billions in fiat can't buy you more bread or a faster car allocation than anyone else.
Exactly. It acts as a universal access regulator. It forces consumption to be based on genuine need and priority within that monthly limit, not on how much capital you've managed to accumulate. The power of wealth to command disproportionate shares of essential resources evaporates.
And this structure also seems to push hard towards sustainability, right? Reducing waste.
Definitely. First, the limit of 1,000 tokens forces conscious choices. You're less likely to waste a token on something frivolous or poorly made if you know it means giving up something else you need.
Especially with the LTL rules making durable goods hard to replace quickly.
Right. You're incentivized to choose quality, things that last, things you can potentially swap later. The throwaway society model becomes structurally penalized if you buy junk that breaks. You've wasted a precious token and your LTL timer might be running.
So those factories churning out cheap, low-quality goods, mainly for profit, what happens to them if ZDC demand shifts towards durable, necessary items?
They'd see their ZDC demand plummet. They'd become inefficient in the new paradigm. They'd likely have to scale down or retool.
But again, the social safety net is the ZDC allocation.
Exactly. The economic shift away from low-quality production doesn't automatically mean mass poverty for the workers. They still get their 1,000 ZDC. The system can absorb these economic transitions without causing widespread human suffering. That's a core design principle.
Let's stress test this again. What about preferential treatment? Okay, maybe a billionaire can't buy 100 cars with ZDC, but they still have billions in fiat. Couldn't they just pay Corporation X a huge fiat bribe to ensure they get allocated the first new model car that becomes available under the LTL rules, jumping the queue ahead of everyone else who signaled demand with their ZDC?
That's the potential friction point where the fiat layer could try to influence the ZDC layer.
Yeah.
The defense here relies heavily on transparency and accountability.
How so?
The ZDC system, by design, logs all demand transparently. Everyone can see, perhaps anonymized, how many people signal demand for that new car model. If Corporation X consistently allocates the limited supply to known fiat-wealthy individuals while ignoring the broader ZDC demand queue,
It becomes publicly obvious they're prioritizing fiat bribes over fulfilling the ZDC mandate.
precisely. The ZDC ledger becomes evidence. There would likely need to be regulations or clauses in the ZDC smart contract itself that mandate non-discriminatory allocation based on the transparent demand signal. Perhaps first come, first serve, or lottery system for highly contested LTLs. A corporation caught taking fiat bribes to subvert the ZDC allocation queue would risk massive public backlash and potentially sanctions within the system for failing its core logistical duty. It wouldn't be impossible, but it would be risky and transparently unfair.
Okay, so transparency is the main check against fiat corruption influencing ZDC allocation. That makes sense. Now let's talk implementation. This whole thing sounds utopian, but the source calls it a hack. How do you actually implement something this massive without tearing down the entire global economy, which seems impossible?
That's the cleverest part, according to the proposal. You don't try to abolish the existing economy, you create a parallel system specifically for human consumption and structurally separate it. The dual economic system.
Two layers operating simultaneously. Define the top layer, the corporate layer.
This layer stays largely as it is, operating purely in traditional fiat currencies, dollars, euros, yuan, etc. All the complex stuff. Companies buying raw materials, investing in factories, managing international shipping, paying for energy, conducting R&D, all that continues using fiat.
So fiat becomes like the internal accounting system or the energy source for the global production machine.
Exactly. It's the lubricant for the corporate and industrial gears, managing logistics and production costs.
And then the bottom layer, the human layer.
Completely insulated. Humans use only ZDC for all consumption. Every single good and every single service. Your existing fiat money, whether it's cash or in a bank, becomes instantly useless for buying anything directly as a consumer. You can't buy groceries with dollars anymore.
Wow. Okay, that transition, it has to be sudden, right? The source insists on an overnight switch.
Yes, a simultaneous global switch on. This is absolutely critical to prevent the wealthy from gaming the system before it starts.
Yeah.
If people knew it was coming, those with massive fiat wealth could liquidate assets and just buy up vast stockpiles of physical goods, food, fuel, building materials, everything. They could hoard decades' worth of resources, completely undermining the fairness of the day one ZDC allocation.
So the switch happens overnight. Your fiat is still fiat, maybe usable on the corporate layer if you own a business, but useless for personal shopping. You wake up and your ZDC wallet has 1,000 units, same as everyone else.
Exactly. The hoarding threat for consumer goods is neutralized instantly because the currency required for consumption has changed, and everyone starts from the same baseline. Your existing possessions are yours, but future consumption runs on ZDC.
What kind of global coordination would that take? Central banks, governments?
Unprecedented levels. Central banks might shift from setting interest rates to becoming essentially chief administrators and auditors of the national ZDC identity ledgers, ensuring everyone eligible gets their wallet and the system integrity is maintained. It requires near universal buy-in from major nations. Any large country refusing to participate would create huge black market loopholes and arbitrage opportunities.
Okay, let's walk through a transaction at the point of sale. The cash desk integration. I want to buy, say, a book. It used to cost $20. Now it costs 1 ZDC. What happens when I tap my ZDC wallet?
The system logs several key pieces of data simultaneously. Your unique identifier, key pair, the fact that 1 ZDC was spent, the specific product code for that book, and crucially, it also logs the old fiat price, or more accurately, the fiat cost of goods sold, COGS, for that book.
Ah, so the fiat price doesn't vanish entirely.
No, it just becomes invisible to the consumer at the point of sale. It's retained as vital data for the corporate layer.
What do they use it for?
It's their internal accounting metric. It tells the bookstore and the publisher the fiat cost involved in producing and delivering that book. They can use this COGS data to track their own efficiency, manage their fiat finances, calculate profitability within the corporate fiat economy, and see if their logistics are getting better or worse over time. But it doesn't gatekeep the consumer's ability to get the book if they have 1 ZDC.
And this whole logging process creates that perfect, transparent demand signal we talked about earlier.
Exactly. Because price is no longer a barrier for the consumer, everything is 1 ZDC, the system sees raw, unadulterated demand. What do people actually want when cost isn't the primary object?
The sources predicted an initial rush on previously unaffordable luxury or high-tech items.
That seems likely. People might initially burn their ZDC on things they always dreamed of, but couldn't afford, maybe high-end electronics, specialized tools, things associated with status in the old system.
And that initial flood of demand for, say, luxury boats
Sends an unmistakable signal to the corporate fiat layer. There is massive unmet desire here. It tells the boat manufacturers, the material suppliers, the logistics firms exactly where they should be investing their fiat capital to improve efficiency and ramp up production to meet that ZDC Express need.
So if everyone wants high-quality, sustainable furniture instead of cheap disposable stuff.
The ZDC demand signals that clearly. The companies still using fiat to manage production see that the biggest potential for serving the system, and thus likely making fiat profit within their layer, is in producing high-quality, sustainable furniture efficiently. The system inherently guides investment towards fulfilling actual human desires and needs, as expressed directly through ZDC usage, rather than towards things that simply generate the highest profit margin through artificial scarcity or marketing.
So the hack is essentially keeping the complex engine of the global economy running on fiat.
But completely changing the interface for human beings, isolating us from the direct financial pressures and volatility of that engine by inserting the ZDC layer as a universal, fair, time-limited access protocol.
Money remains a tool for the corporate machine, but it stops being the ultimate goal or determinant of survival for the individual.
That's the core idea. It tries to preserve the necessary complexity of markets. You still need global trade, logistics, investment, but it attempts to force that market, through the rules of the ZDC interface, to operate under a different prime directive. Maximize resource efficiency and societal fairness, not just maximize capital accumulation.
Okay. This has been, well, it's a lot to take in. This deep dive into the $0 coin really stretches the imagination. It's not just dismissing markets entirely, which often feels unrealistic.
No, it's much more subtle. It's aiming for a fundamental reprogramming of the existing market systems using these specific technological constraints: the zero value, the flat cost, the expiration, the identity link.
It feels like a potential middle ground, perhaps. It accepts that complex economies are probably necessary.
But argues we can use technology to force that complexity to serve human needs more directly and fairly. By inserting this ZDC layer, it attempts to align the powerful engine of the market with goals like resource efficiency and equitable access, rather than letting it run purely on the fuel of profit maximization, which, as we see, can lead to huge distortions and inequalities.
The philosophy behind it is stark. Money should just be a tool, a logistical facilitator, not the ultimate measure of a life or society.
And the ZDC is proposed as that tool, redesigned, using its fixed mathematical properties, the zero value, the flat costs, the deletion, to steer the whole system towards, hopefully, a more sustainable and equitable outcome for everyone.
It really challenges that core metric of progress, doesn't it? Away from GDP growth towards maybe logistical mastery, efficient distribution.
Collective mastery over meeting needs with available resources. That seems to be the implied benchmark.
All right, as we wrap up, let's leave you, the listener, with something to chew on. A provocative closing thought building on this ZDC framework.
If we lived in a world where getting the things you need and want required permission, the ZDC token, rather than accumulated capital fiat money.
What other parts of our current society, beyond the obvious ones like banks and stock markets, would suddenly become obsolete? Or maybe just fundamentally change their entire purpose?
Think about it. Industries built on consumer credit and debt. High-end luxury marketing that relies on exclusivity defined by price. Even things like personal finance advisors or retirement planning. How relevant are they when basic consumption is guaranteed and limited by ZDC, not savings?
The ripple effects would be massive, touching almost every aspect of life currently tied to financial status.
A complete reevaluation might be needed.
We'll let you ponder that one. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.